Greenlight Network presents Football Time.
Hey, and welcome to the Football Time Show. We're here for Week 3 college football recap and review. It was an interesting week, a disappointing week for, both of us. It was a tough week on the picking side of things, but an interesting college football week overall. I think we know a little bit more about some of these teams here after week 3 and sort of watching them play over the weekend. But what'd you make of week 3, Dynamite?
Well, yeah, we talked about how there was a lot of plays last week. I think we let our excitement get the better of us, and I know I probably played a few that I shouldn't have. I talked myself into coming off a good week, wanted to have another big week, and just snap and clear mentality. We're going to get right back to it this week. We're going to get back to our winning ways, and the Dynamite's going to be booming again next Saturday.
All right, so let's get into some of our games of the week review. Let's start out with Cincinnati, Indiana. Cincinnati sort of took control of this game in the second half. Cincinnati ended up winning 38-24. I think this game was a lot closer than this sort of final score indicates. Yeah. Really, in that first half, Indiana was dominating the game. If they had been able to separate just a little bit more, I think they could have pulled this out. And then the targeting suspension in the towards the end, I believe, of that first half, maybe right at the start of the second half, really sort of boosted Cincinnati, and they managed to hold on. But I was a little disappointed in the way Cincinnati came out of look, especially offensively. What did you make of this game, Dynamite?
Yeah, I thought Indiana missed out on a huge opportunity to get a good get a jump on Cincinnati. Now, they did jump out early, but they had quite the home field advantage. Their crowd was crazy. Got it down to the goal line a couple times, turned it over, kicked a field goal. Really, if they had capitalized on some early opportunities, they could have buried the Cincinnati team earlier in a deficit that I don't think they would have come back from. But like you said, that probably one of their best defensive players getting knocked out right before halftime, and Cincinnati getting the score, getting it closer right before they go into the half, and then that just gave them the momentum to go in and get a good road win at Indiana.
Yeah, definitely so. Indiana, what do you make of them now? Now 1-2, lost both those sort of big time games, Iowa, Cincinnati. I thought they looked much better in this game versus Cincinnati. We've seen a lot of the Big Ten teams now. Do you think they can put themselves back into contention in the Big Ten, or do you think we're going to go back to sort of a lot of tough luck losses like this where you think Indiana should win, should play better, but they don't?
Yeah, I was actually, this was a really encouraging loss, I think, for Indiana. While they would have needed this win, they actually played a lot better. And I think they could compete with the top dogs in the Big Ten for sure. But they can't get too down over this game. They just got to move on and get onto this Big Ten schedule, the rest of this Big Ten schedule.
Yeah, I have to agree. I think Indiana might be able to contend in the Big Ten from what I saw. From what I saw from Iowa, that was a flat performance. But this one, a couple plays here and there, they have that big win over Cincinnati, and we'll see what they can do. Cincinnati, meanwhile, their next big game, they're bye this week, and then they play Notre Dame. What do you make of that game? We'll get into the Notre Dame game here in a second, but do you think Cincinnati can roll off that and continue this undefeated season?
Yeah, I don't think they should get too down about having to come back against Indiana. Like I said, it was a tough road environment, and Cincinnati did what they had to do. They forced through some bad turnovers early, and they clawed their way back and got the good win. So I think a week of rest and preparation for Notre Dame and the way Notre Dame's performing, I think they have a shot at that one as well.
Yeah, definitely so. All right, we'll get into Auburn and Penn State. Penn State pulled this one out 28-20. I think this game sort of played out as we thought. I did think Penn State's quarterback played solid, more solid than he has, especially in big games so far. But basically, Penn State was just a little bit better than Auburn. Auburn's offense if they aren't capable of running the ball every time, anytime you put the ball in Bo Nix's hands to throw, it's just they aren't going to be successful. I didn't think the defense played particularly great on Auburn's side of things, but tough place to go and win. What'd you make of this game?
Yeah, I guess the wideout worked for Penn State in this game. Like you said, I think it came down to Bo Nix's performance, and we knew it would going in. I thought we would see a little bit better outcome, but they just didn't quite have enough to go in and get it done in that environment.
Yeah, and you know they had a couple chances to drive down, you know, and put themselves either to tie this game or to win this game at various points in that fourth quarter. They couldn't just seem to do it, and I think that's where you come back to the Bo Nix situation. He can't do that. He won that first game of his career 3 years ago by making that miracle pass, and I don't think he's let a comeback drive since. So curious where you see Penn State here. Offense is still pretty hot and cold. Clifford did, I mentioned, play better in this one, but I think that Penn State defense, definitely so far from what we've seen in the Big Ten, I think I'm starting to move Penn State up into the same category as, you know, we look at Ohio State and Iowa and Wisconsin here.
Yeah, I think there definitely needs some polishing on the offensive side, but their defense has been looking pretty good. But like you said, if they're going to get up in the Wisconsin and Ohio level, I think they're going to need to produce more offensively to be right up there. But you know, they're undefeated. They're like number 6 in the country now, so they need to enjoy it and try to keep their momentum going.
Yeah. All right, Auburn. How do you think this season plays out for them? You know, they had 2 cupcakes. This was their tough game. They played okay. Do you think they can be in that contender side of things of the SEC West, or do you think they'll be more on the lower half side of things?
Remains to be seen. That, like I said, after Alabama, the West gets really cloudy there between A&M, Mississippi State, Auburn, LSU. They're all really, I could see either one of them finishing second in the division and fifth in the division. So we'll see where they fall. I like Auburn all around. I think going into this game, they were my pick for the second in the SEC West. And, you know, if Penn State really is that good, maybe Auburn holds that ranking and they move through the season and manage to finish right behind Bama. And who knows, Bama looks beatable. We'll get to that too.
Maybe. If you can bore them to death in the first quarter and then they turn off. All right, we'll get into the Virginia-North Carolina game. I think this probably was the biggest disappointment really for the both of us. Virginia started out real well. We were getting our sort of shootout, but Virginia's defense in the second half just sort of went away. The scoring went away a little bit for Virginia, but I think if you had told me Virginia was going to hang 39 on North Carolina on the road, I think I still would have rode pretty hard for Virginia to win this game. They didn't manage to. They gave up 59 points. That's got to be probably the most Broncos given up in quite a while. So what do you make of this North Carolina team? They seem to have found their offense. And what do you make of Virginia here?
Yeah, this is not the North Carolina team that we watched week 1 against Virginia Tech, because I just think they've figured out a rhythm to their offense. You know, they had to replace a lot of pieces offensively, so maybe it just took a little time to get that just that communication and just feel on the field. Because I don't know if Virginia Tech's defense is going to be as dominant as we thought it was week 1, because, you know, we just saw them struggle against West Virginia this past week. So maybe UNC's turned it around offensively and they can pull it around and get that ACC.
Yeah, they seem to have found a running attack with Ty Chandler, had 20 carries, 200 yards in that game. Caleb Hood had 9 carries for 66 yards. Overall, they had 47 carries for 392 yards. And I think it might have been lost a little bit last year that Carolina, while Sam Howell is all flashy and good, was sort of based in the run with those 2 running backs that are now playing in the NFL, and both had pretty good days for the Jets and Broncos. So I think if they have their running attack like they did the other day, then they can run sort of those play action passes and get those big plays down the field. And that's sort of how this game played out. Virginia's offense still looks really good. Brandon Armstrong ended up throwing for 550 yards in this game. So I think Virginia probably maintains. We'll see how that defense, if it continues to get shredded, or this was just a really good offensive game on the North Carolina side of things. So curious to see how Virginia bounces back after this loss. But
tough one this next week.
Yeah, maybe we start to push North Carolina back to somewhere on that level that we thought they were going to be coming into the season here. Okay, next up, this one, Boise State probably should be 3-0. Somehow is 1-2. Oklahoma State won 21-20. I hope nobody watched the second half of this game because basically nothing happened in the second half.
Yeah, I believe that's the halftime score, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. Yes, Oklahoma State got a touchdown with 6 seconds left to make it 21-20, and that was the game. Boise State missed a field goal there at the end of the game. But anyway, what'd you make of this? Oklahoma State, I think their combined wins of 3-0 might be about 12 total points, but they are 3-0. Boise State 1-2, but probably should be 3-0. So what'd you make of this game?
Well, this is one where I should have trusted my early preseason prediction. I said this was going to be a down year for Boise, but for some reason I thought they would win this game. And Oklahoma State, really good road win. It's tough for anybody to go into Boise and come out with a win. And so now, albeit an ugly win, I don't know how impressive Oklahoma State really looked. But a win is a win, and we'll see how they are moving on. I'm still worried about that offense moving into the Pac-12 or Big 12 schedule.
Yeah, I find it really hard to gauge this game. Boise State up with 27. Once again, blew a big lead. Then couldn't find their offense in the second half. Oklahoma State legit couldn't find any offense in the second half. Their quarterback went 6 for 13 for 82 yards. So I don't think we're quite ready to crown them as Big 12 champs here. They did run the ball for 246 yards. And I will say that's very important for Oklahoma State. They've had for, 20 years now, or ever since Gundy's taken over, a really big time rushing attack. So maybe if they can find their rushing attack, they can sort of get over the hump a little bit offensively. That being said, they will have to throw for more than 82 yards in a game, probably to pull it out. The only thing on the Boise State side of things, they can't seem to find a running attack, and I think that's been their main problem. 35 carries, 61 yards, and much like Oklahoma State, their success for numerous years has been built running sort of a pro-style offense out of that running attack, and it doesn't seem to be here this year. All right, let's move on to Coastal Carolina and Buffalo. Interesting game. Buffalo played pretty well in this one, but Coastal Carolina comes out with a nice road win, 28-25. What'd you make of Coastal Carolina going into Buffalo and getting a win here?
I honestly thought Coastal would come out and dominate this one, so I'm actually pretty impressed with Buffalo. This actually is probably their best performance on the year so far, even though it wasn't a loss. They pushed Coastal right to the end of the game and almost pulled it out. Had a couple bounces go their way on some big plays. They fumbled a ball, managed to pick it up and run it in for a score. But Coastal got another road win. I guess a road win at Buffalo. that challenging away game, home field advantage for the Buffalo Bulls. But I honestly I've expected to see more out of Coastal defensively this year. Their defense has dropped off a bit from last year, and I think that's going to hurt them when they get to some bigger games this year.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how this Coastal defense really bounces back. I went back and watched this game on a replay, and it sort of seemed like Coastal could have scored if they really wanted to. So if this game, was, in that closing minutes and they needed to drive down, they probably could have drove down and score. But I will say Defensively, they look a little bit weaker, but I think the most impressive thing is I think the Buffalo Bulls defense has really played well 2 weeks in a row. The offense seems to be a little bit lost from what it was in the years past. Now, they've had NFL level running backs there for probably 8 years now, so that always sort of helps you. But it'll be interesting to see how Buffalo does getting into the MAC. It might be a little different where they're built defensively and not offensively. I don't know how that's going to play in these MAC games, when the games get open and fast paced, but definitely sort of more impressed with Buffalo here defensively the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see once all these MAC teams get into conference play, because some of them have been going out and really challenging some of these major conference teams. So I'm excited to get to that MAC schedule for sure.
Yeah, definitely so. All right. A heartbreaker coming up for you next.
Gosh.
Virginia Tech, West Virginia. Yeah, you took the Hokies in this one, and the start of the first half, I think you had written this off, but as West Virginia tends to do, they let Virginia Tech back in the game up into the point where Virginia Tech was on the 2-yard line, ready to win the game, and yet couldn't quite pull it off. Kind of interesting the way this played out. I think if Virginia Tech had been sort of focused the whole way through, they probably run away and blow out this game. But West Virginia jumped on them early and managed to hold off. What do you make of this game?
Yeah, just Virginia Tech getting gashed by some big plays early, and then they had to scrap their way back the whole game, and just couldn't quite do it. And then on that last drive, they got in their heads a little bit rather than just getting the ball in the end zone. They were managing clock and trying to figure out how they were going to do things, and they ended up not getting the score and losing on a 4th down conversion. So, but yeah, I think West Virginia's first offensive play was a huge run play up the middle for a touchdown. And so they were behind the 8 ball there from the very get-go and really didn't even start to claw back until the end of the first half.
Yeah. The only thing you mentioned that play calling, on the 2-3 yard line, I mentioned to you, I was like, they're going to try to manage it so West Virginia doesn't get the ball back and they get the store. And, they ran 2 basic run plays up the middle. And I think the real killer was that 3rd down play where they, had one receiver out on the route and they had him, the quarterback roll out to that side. If he's not open, that play's pretty much dead, and you've just wasted a play on a 1 receiver route where you've closed out any chance to sort of ad lib. So, Virginia Tech cost themselves that one, and sort of this one really hurts because if you look at the ACC, I don't think you write Virginia Tech off because it might be the best team we've seen in the ACC so far, going by what we've seen of pretty much everybody else in there. That conference is really, really weak right now.
Yeah, and we'll get to it here in a minute. Clemson didn't look very strong, and UNC's starting to power back. So Virginia Tech, they had the advantage over UNC. Now they still have the tiebreaker, but this thing could get really crowded at the top here because there's about 4 or 5 teams right now look like they're all about the same performance and talent wise. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah. All right. We'll get to the big one, Alabama, Florida. Alabama sort of jumped out on this one pretty big, 21-3. Florida sort of milked their way back into it by halftime, making it 21-9. And then I don't want to say Florida took control, but they found a way to sort of keep that Alabama offense off the field by basically just running a sort of hybrid option offense where, Jones was running around and basically just running the ball every play. So they found a way to run the ball on Alabama and keep control of the ball. Made this one close at the end, 31-29, and had that 2-point conversion to tie it. And that play messed up and was broken from the start. But what'd you make of this game?
Yeah, the biggest takeaway I have from this is, Alabama had opportunities early to put this thing away pretty quick, but just the inability to run the ball. It was something we haven't seen from Alabama in a while. Pretty much their most effective run was a little screen out route. and then letting the running back or wide receiver run it from there. But anything handed off in between the tackles was just getting stuffed. And then as far as Florida offensively, what teams need to do in the future is just force Emory Jones to pass the ball. If you can stop him from running the ball, Florida doesn't have anything offensively. Now, it remains to be seen if Emory Jones is the quarterback the rest of the year. But for now, if you make him throw the ball, he's going to make some mistakes because he does not look good throwing the ball. But Alabama let him run, and therefore Florida was able to stay in this game.
Yeah. How much do you make of it that Bama probably shut off a little bit, jumping out 21-3 there, and Florida didn't look like they could do much, and then all of a sudden they sort of found that little cheat code where they just started pounding run after run after run? How much do you make of that, and how much do you make of it? Maybe this is an Alabama issue here where they struggle sort of stopping a hybrid option type offense here.
I don't know. It's hard to tell with this team. I think Alabama actually, like I said, with their running game, I think it was their inability to put the game away offensively. I don't know if their defense was the biggest problem in this game. Just missing all those weapons that they had. They don't have. I haven't seen number one draft pick wide receivers or a first round running back this year. Now those guys may be in a year or two, but just seem to be struggling to reload a little bit offensively, and I think that was the key in this game. And so, if we can slow Alabama down, if you go up against a team that can score, I'm interested to see what Ole Miss can do them in a few weeks.
Yeah, they might have to stop them on the back end, though, which has been their issues in years past. All right, we'll move on to our next game here. Interesting game. I think we're about really ready to push Kansas State into a totally different category here. Hopefully they will be ranked. I don't know if people have been watching college football, but Kansas State has probably been playing better than anyone in college football right now. They hammered Nevada, and I mean hammered Nevada. They got up, lined up, and smashed them in the mouth, and beat them 38-17. Carson Strong was a solid, but I didn't think great in this game. Threw for 262, a touchdown and a pick. But really what I was amazed at was this Kansas State run game. Once again, lined up, smashed people in the mouth. We thought maybe Will Howard, a little bit of an issue, but they only had him throw 10 times. Highly efficient, 7-10, 123. So if you can make 7 passes for 123 yards, I think you're doing all right. Ran the ball 48 times for 269 yards. So I think this Kansas State team really starts needing some love, not just from us, because I think we've been pretty bullish on them all year long.
Yeah, this is one of the games that I really talked myself into because of the injury to Skylar Thompson, where I should have just stayed away. I liked both of these teams going in. We were both big on Kansas State, and I've liked Nevada, but just really impressed with Howard and Kansas State. I thought they were going to struggle offensively in this one, and they just gave it to Nevada. I think they were 25th in the AP poll today, but still not ranked in the coaches poll. So. Maybe some people are still sleeping on Kansas State, but honestly, I like them to right up there with Oklahoma for the Big 12.
Yeah, this is where I get mad at polls. They've beaten Stanford and they've beaten Nevada, two teams who we both consider good, and then nothing. They don't get moved in there.
Nevada.
Yeah,
and they killed Stanford.
I know. And there's nothing. There's just nothing because it's Kansas State and no one cares. I guarantee you if Texas had won those 2 games, they'd be number 5 in the country and we'd be talking about how they're back. So that's a little annoying, but, that's just sort of how it is if you're Kansas State. If they win out, somebody will eventually notice that they are undefeated, but another really good win. Gotta say, love that little short running back, Deuce Vaughn. Just gets down there, gets in those little holes that the offensive line creates over the middle and just makes havoc wreak. So really, really like him. Kansas State and their little small spark plug running backs. They always seem to find one or two. All right, next up, really interesting game. San Diego State and BYU, now leaders of the Pac-12 South. Anyway, San Diego State manages to win an overtime game, getting the 2-point conversion there, 33-31. The score doesn't totally tell the story. San Diego State pretty much dominated this game. all the way through until the closing seconds of the game. So really impressive win again for San Diego State. Utah, another tough loss. How much are you looking down on Utah here, or how much are you just going, you're playing at BYU, then you're coming back playing at San Diego State? That's a little bit more difficult than I think people think.
Yeah, I gave them a pass on the BYU game. I think that was a really tough matchup. San Diego State, no, I don't think they're quite as good as BYU, but they have impressed me so far this year as well. So 2 solid teams to lose to, but I just, this was a Utah team that I and many others thought could win the Pac-12 this year, and just not getting the production out of their transfer quarterback and San Diego State. I give them credit. A lot of people were sleeping on them. They've been getting points all year. We're getting 9 against this Utah team, and really dominated most of the game. They tried to lose it there at the end, but managed to hang on. So I'm starting to get worried about Utah.
Yeah, they did. Brewers started once again, you said, and played terrible. And they brought in the backup, Cameron Rising. He did come in, throw 3 touchdowns for 153 yards. His completion percentage was not much better than Brewers been, but there at least were no turnovers there. So I'm curious to see how, I'm assuming this guy will start next game, how Utah does with a new guy behind the helm, and maybe they could sort of find their thing. The other thing on Utah, I've noticed they haven't run the ball very well, so far this year. And I think that has a lot to do with it. We've mentioned it with Oklahoma State. We mentioned it with Boise State. A lot of these teams need to be able to run the ball well to really sort of hide their quarterback play and their explosive offense. Meanwhile, San Diego State continues to do what they do. Played good defense once again until sort of the end of the game. Managed to run the ball and sort of made the quarterback not a factor. I am assuming at some point the quarterback is probably going to have to throw for at least 100 yards in a game. But right now, San Diego State has been able to manage it where they can't. I'm really curious to see how this Mountain West breaks out. There are a lot of good teams in there. And apparently Utah State, we probably won't review that game, but Utah State is now undefeated and has played 3 really good games so far. So it should be a really, really interesting Mountain West season.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. This one, you did get a win on. It wasn't pretty, but it was a win. Georgia beat South Carolina 40-13. The holds true. Don't take conference favorites over 30 in conference games. But this wasn't really much of a game. But Georgia went out, found some points, and able to beat up on South Carolina pretty much.
Yeah, it was a blowout, but I want to give South Carolina a little bit of love here. They fought this whole game. This quarterback they've got has been making some plays. I think he had 2 passes of 50-plus yards in this one.
He did.
So don't sleep on South Carolina moving forward. You may get some good lines with them down the road and potential to make some money, because I think this team has a lot of fight in them, no quit. So good coaching job by the first-year coach. Now, they went in, they got their beating at Georgia, but there's some winnable games in the SEC East for sure.
Well, I think that was probably the question I was going to ask you. Where do you think this South Carolina team ends up in the SEC East? I think we were both really, really down on them. And then coming out of what we saw versus Kentucky last week, I mean, I don't think it's out of the realm that they could be in and around, under the Georgia-Florida content and be right there. Battling for that probably 3rd spot. I don't think they're quite on the Florida level, but I do think they're much better than either of us thought.
Well, a little preview on next week. I'm eyeballing that matchup against Kentucky this next week. Right now, South Carolina is only getting 5.5. I thought it would be a little larger than that. If that gets around a touchdown or more, I may lean South Carolina here, especially from what we saw on Kentucky Saturday.
Yeah, definitely so. Should be interesting to see how this South Carolina team plays. It's Sort of weird because they are very much in the mold of really early Frank Beamer. You weren't quite alive when Frank first started at Virginia Tech. I was a child, but those early Frank Beamer teams that it was never really pretty. Offense wasn't like great, but they'd find a couple plays here and there. Defense was always solid, and special teams were always okay. So they found ways to win games, and Beamer's son, now South Carolina's coach, seems to have him playing in that same type of mold. So it'll be interesting to see how this South Carolina team progresses this year and in future years. I'm curious if he can build this into sort of a stabilized program like Virginia Tech became. All right, the big upset of the day, and your boys.
Yeah, my Bulldogs.
State. You called it in our preview season that Fresno State was going to be really pretty good this year. Have probably played Oregon tougher than anybody, might all year long, and went down to UCLA and won this game 40-37 in a really, really good, entertaining game here. But good win by Fresno. UCLA got off to a really sort of slow start here and tried to make a push at the end. Do you think that bye helped them? I think it hurt them a little bit with the way they came out. I think they started out just too slow and couldn't fight their way back.
Yeah, they lost a lot of their momentum they got in week one and just took a little bit too long to get going. Had this game gone another quarter, they probably would have got the win. But I tell you what, this is actually, who's probably happy from this result is Oregon. I think they can be a little bit more confident now and not be looking back at that almost loss in week one to Fresno, because this is a good Fresno team, and they're going to be right there in it with these big boys.
Yeah, I can't say it enough. I think the Mountain West is going to be
very good conference,
the most entertaining conference to watch.
I tell you what, I would probably rank the Mountain West over both the Pac-12 and the Big 12.
I think so right now with these teams. Yeah. I mean, you're staring at it where Boise State is 1-2 and could very easily just be 3-0 in this as well. So it's going to be a really good Mountain West season. I will say, once again, the Pac-12 gets hurt a little here. We're getting to the Arizona State loss. There seems to be one really good team and then a couple we don't know what we're getting on a chosen Saturday teams here.
Well, where this will hurt them is if there ends up being 3 or 4 other undefeated teams that could potentially keep Oregon out because of just the weak conference. Now, we'll see how it plays out. Clemson's already got a loss. Ohio State's already got a loss. So we'll see.
To their bad games coming up as well.
So we'll see how the rest of the year plays out. But really, Oregon's their only hope at national recognition now.
Yeah. Arizona State, BYU. Arizona State went in there and really wasn't in it basically from the start. BYU took control. Arizona State made a little push in that third quarter, but basically BYU shut them down offensively and just ran it down their throats on that side of thing. Jaron Hall continues to play pretty well, and so what do you make of this BYU team? They're only, I don't know what their new ranking is, but they were 23 coming into last week. And honestly, I think this team might be a little better than last year's team.
Yeah. They keep surprising me. This was one team going into the year. I really had no idea where they were going to fall, but they've impressed and definitely played better than I thought they would. I thought Arizona State would get this W today, and BYU just handled their business. So
yeah, they
keep winning. So
Arizona State, are you down on them any, or you think it's just sort of what we thought? They can play good in the big games, and then they can play just flat like they did today.
Well, if I looked at the schedule right, I think they're playing a team that doesn't score at all this next week. I think they play Colorado Saturday. So if they score 3 points, they should win this weekend.
They need 7. Colorado did manage a couple points versus A&M, not versus Minnesota, which is highly confusing. But anyway, I'll be interested to see how Arizona State responds after this loss. All right.
Yeah, sorry, I was expecting more out of their offense this year. This was a team that was just throwing up, 40 spots against a whole bunch of people last year, and just haven't really seen it this year.
Yeah, that's what I'd say. It wasn't just the BYU game. There are 2 wins before this. The offense, I wouldn't say has been impressive. But somebody's offense who was impressive, who I don't think was coming, Washington, 52 points over Arkansas State here. I think we thought Arkansas State might go in there and prove something, but Washington got some offense, and amazingly, that wins football games.
Yeah, I stayed away with this one, but I believe you took it. But we were both eyeballing it all week last week, and just from what we saw in Arkansas State against Memphis, we thought they would be a little bit more competitive against a just anemic offense at Washington. But they found it, and maybe that's just a terrible Arkansas State defense. We'll see. Washington's got an interesting matchup hosting Cal this weekend, so I'm interested to see how that goes.
Don't expect points in that one.
Yeah, Cal's getting 7 right now, so I'm eyeballing that one really hard.
Yeah, I will say Washington still threw 2 picks in this game, so it'll be interesting to see how they go forward. But it was nice to see that they were capable of scoring at least 20 in a game. I don't know if they will do it the rest of the year, but at least they showed there was a little life there. All right, the Notre Dame-Purdue game, 27-13. Notre Dame really just sort of took control of this game in the fourth quarter. Really, I've watched all 3 of Notre Dame's games so far. I thought this was sort of the best they had played so far this year. I think Purdue got a little bit more hurt than I thought with their running back out.
Yeah.
And the 2 quarterback flip-flopping thing didn't seem to work out quite as great this week. But I did think this was the best I'd seen Notre Dame play so far this year.
Yeah, I thought Purdue was going to go in and be a little bit more competitive. Notre Dame, they bounced back from 2 close wins and really performed a lot better. Offensive looked a lot better in this one. So they've got another tough matchup this coming week, I believe.
Yeah,
I can't
Wisconsin.
Yes, Wisconsin. And that's going into Wisconsin, I believe.
Yes.
So that's going to be a tough one, and we'll see how they can do. They've had a really tough schedule so far this year. I'll give them credit. They're at least getting the W's.
Yeah, they're getting the W's if they win this one, and then the Cincinnati one the week after that. We might not like the way it's looked, but that's 4 wins over 4 quality teams. The Toledo result this week not being. I still think they're a quality team. I think it was just probably a tough bounce back game after sort of throwing away that game at Notre Dame. You're about to probably get the biggest win in your school's history and then blow it, and then you got to come back and play a sorry Colorado State team. But I did say this was easily the best performance I'd seen Notre Dame do so far this year. Next up, not the best performance, Oklahoma, Nebraska, 23-16. I'm still having questions about Spencer Rattler here. We keep hearing the press and we keep hearing the propaganda about how great Spencer Rattler is. And then I physically watch him play quarterback, and it's not Jalen Hurts. It's not Baker Mayfield. It's not Kyler Murray. It's levels below that. They get the win. I think this Nebraska defense has sort of found its way and might be able to throw them a little bit more in contention in Big Ten games. The offense still is a work in progress. But I think the question here is, what do you make of this Oklahoma team?
Yeah, well, if I remember correctly, it took Rattler a little bit to get going last year as well. So maybe it's just...
You mean when he started playing bad Big 12 defenses?
Well, yeah, probably. But so I think Oklahoma's probably been one of the biggest disappointments this year. They brought everybody back from last year's team and then brought in more talent from other teams in the transfer portal. And I was expecting a big turnaround from Oklahoma and just really take that next step. And they have shown that they can't do that. And even defensively, I thought they would be better. And they let a terrible offense in Nebraska almost beat them.
Yeah, they took that ridiculous pick to close out this game.
So if I was Oklahoma, I'd be worried moving into this. There's some teams that are capable of beating them on their schedule.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how they do in this Big 12. I think as well. There are definitely teams in the Big 12 who can manhandle them. Aforementioned Kansas State, who's
Yeah.
beaten them 2 years in a row with probably much lesser teams than the one they
Mhm.
have now. So be curious to see how this Oklahoma team offense comes together, because it's certainly not as explosive as it has been. Speaking of offenses who are no longer explosive,
Yeah.
Woo! Clemson, 14-8. I know they tried to blame the weather delay here for the reason their offense was bad, but I hate to break it to them. They had
Their
7
offense has
points.
been bad all year.
Yeah, they had 7 points going into halftime right before the weather delay hit. So Clemson offense really, really bad. Had to get a goal line stop on Georgia Tech to win this game. Defensively, I think they can keep themselves in every game. But if you're only managing 14 points versus Georgia Tech, I sense some trouble here.
Yeah, and we were talking about it earlier. There's some, maybe not tier 1 teams in the ACC, but there's a lot of teams that are creeping up that could potentially knock off Clemson that are at that level. They're going to have to score points if they want to beat a UNC or a Virginia or even a Virginia Tech. And right now, their offense is just, they're not figuring anything out, and big drop off. I don't think DJ Uiagalelei is as good as they were hoping. He stepped in some last year. Now he had, I think, some better weapons to throw to last year, but they've still got a lot of talent on this team, and they need to figure it out quick.
Yeah, I don't know how big a factor the offensive line is really playing and how bad DJ's playing. His Dr. Pepper sponsor might pull out when they realize he's not very good.
I don't think they've even filmed his commercial yet.
Yeah. The running game continues to be a struggle for Clemson as well. But once again, I don't know how much of a factor is that on the running backs and how much of that is on the offensive line, which is really, really poor. And you mentioned it. They're going to have to score points. First teams like North Carolina and Virginia. You can't rely on holding somebody to 8 every week. You will have to be in the 20s. And right now, I don't know if this team can get in the 20s. I mean, even the week before when they played a bad South Carolina State team, they only had about 20 points in that first half. So it just seems like the offense is a really, really bad struggle right now. So it'll be interesting to see how this Clemson season ends up playing out. Right now, they are nowhere near the top level of these teams. Speaking of teams bouncing back off a loss and didn't look great, Ohio State played Tulsa. This was pretty much a game all the way through about the midpoint of the fourth quarter here when Ohio State tacked on 2 touchdowns late. But this was a 27-20 game with about 5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. So defense continues to be an issue for Ohio State. I know they said the D coordinator wasn't even calling plays this week. On the sideline, it was Rhodes or the other young guy. I can't remember his name. And honestly, I didn't think the offense looked all that great this week either. I thought Stroud struggled once again. So what are you making of this Ohio State team?
Yeah, they're trying to make changes defensively on this team that normally teams would do over the offseason with a whole year to prepare. They pretty much said they wanted to go to a vanilla playbook this week, and it didn't really it really didn't help them a whole lot. This isn't a great Tulsa team. They looked terrible in week 1, but they've actually performed pretty solid the last couple of weeks. Ohio State should be worried. There's some more tough games on their schedule, and they're going to have to stop some people if they want to get a win. They just can't outscore people. Yeah,
I'm very interested. You mentioned that they have Akron coming up, but then it's that at Rutgers game becomes a little bit more interesting from what we've seen at Rutgers. Then they play Maryland, then they're at Indiana and versus Penn State. So, if they haven't sort of fixed issues, I think it'll be difficult for them to come through there unscathed without a loss. So It's interesting just to see what this Buckeyes team is going to do.
The other thing I think about is Ohio State's so used to being undefeated in that playoff picture. How many of these guys are going to keep pushing throughout this year if they come across any more struggles?
Yeah, definitely so.
If they get behind early in a game, they're going to be thinking, "Oh, we've lost this one. What's the point?" And it's going to be a real challenge for Ryan Day to keep this team going and still try to get that Big Ten title.
Yeah. All right. Next game, upset special. I had it. I think you wanted to have it, and you sort of talked yourself out of it. But Western Michigan 44, Pitt 41. Sadly, Kenny Pickett's Heisman Trophy run probably came to a close this week. He did throw for a lot of yards, but anyway, Western Michigan went in there and really just was the better team the whole game. They started with a lead, and every time Pitt tried to score, Western Michigan came back and scored. So what do you make of this Pitt team here?
Well, we knew this Pitt defense was bad, and they showed that they were bad this past week. So, yeah, I think Pitt's going to Pitt. I think they're going to be right there, 7, maybe 8 wins, probably 4 or 5 spots back in the ACC. I don't see them taking that big step this year.
Yeah, I think last week, even after the Tennessee win, though they should have lost, everybody was sort of putting them in the sort of tier right below Clemson, and I don't think they're in that tier.
No.
I think they're in the tier, probably hovering more in the Louisville, Georgia Tech, range, and maybe on an odd Saturday, they might spike a upset win, but I also think this is entirely capable where they go home off a Tennessee win and lose to Western Michigan. So they sort of are what we both thought they were, I think, more than anything in this game. But at least we don't have to hear Pitt rhetoric for probably 6 weeks. All right. Next up, speaking of ACC down.
Basement ACC team.
I think it's easily the worst team I've seen. Wake won 35-14 over Florida State, and I think that score was being generous with the way Wake sort of shut it down after that third quarter, and they knew Florida State had nothing to offer. We've touched on Florida State. I don't think we need to talk about them too much anymore. They are what they are. But this Wake team, I'm interested. I think the ACC is a little open, and we mentioned Pitt not being in that category. What do we think of Wake? Do you think they can make that move into that category, or do you think this schedule's been a little soft and they're looking better than they really are?
Well, I'll tell you what. We'll know after this next week. They're going on the road to Virginia, really high-powered offense. Virginia just came off a tough loss, but I think they still looked good. And Brendan Armstrong's shown to be one of the best quarterbacks in the country. So if Wake can go on the road and get a win there, everybody better wake up on Wake. But Florida State, gosh, just how far they have fallen. Growing up in the 90s and early 2000s, and even the Jameis years, just so used to Florida State being dominant, and this is the worst I've seen them in my lifetime. And only 2.5 point dogs to Louisville this coming week, and I think Louisville's a much better team than Florida State. And I think I should have jumped all over this Wake line because I think it was only a 4-point spread for Wake, and Wake pretty much just boat raced them from beginning to end in that game.
Yeah, it was just I should have, like you said, jumped on that one as well. I was lazy, and then I just threw them in a parlay. When I think we even discussed it on Thursday, and you were like, what do you think of this Wake game? And I was like, Wake will score 35, 40 points on them, and it'll be over. And I sort of ignored my own advice here. But anyway, I'm really curious to see this Wake, Virginia game. There we go.
Yeah.
We got it out this Saturday. So I'm really interested to see what level Wake is at in the ACC here.
I think it's a good separator for both of those teams as far as where they're going to fall at the end of the year in the ACC standings.
Yeah. All right. Lastly, Mississippi State, Memphis. This one ended on a little bit of controversy, but Memphis pulled out the win 31-29 here. What'd you make of this game?
Oh gosh, this all came down to that ending. Just that punt. Yeah, he probably should have kept his hand on the ball longer, but his knee was on the ground too. So just another one of the terrible calls. We had a lot of really bad officiating over the weekend in college games and in NFL games. It was just a terrible officiating week, and I think this caps them all off because it cost Mississippi State the game.
Yeah. The picking of the punt, I didn't have a problem with, but if you watch it, the ref comes in there and is blowing it down. And, once the ref comes in there and blows it down, there's not much you can do. I mean, I do think more teams should try that when somebody slaps down the punt, go and pick it up because it's a free run because you always get it where that spot was hit and you can't fumble the ball. But teams don't really do it. The Memphis guy smartly did it, but the problem was the ref didn't know he was going to do it and blew the play dead. And then was like, oh, whoops. And then they just don't know what to do. But I thought this was a pretty entertaining and well-played game from both sides.
Yeah.
It's probably about where Mississippi State's level is. It's probably around Memphis, and Memphis's level is probably around, sort of a mid-tier SEC team. So
they both have good games coming up this weekend as well.
Yeah, they do. That should be a good week. I think it'll be a good week again this week. So should be entertaining to see how it does. All right. We went through our reviews and now we have to get into our picks a little bit here. Tough week for the Dynamite coming off his hot week the week before. Went 4-13 on the week. Did have 1-1 on the midweek games, but you got losses in New Mexico, plus 29.5, Toledo 14.5, Colorado -2, Auburn +6. Yeah, I still have to read. Virginia +9, Boise State -4.5. San Jose, sadly, 6.5. That was a tough one for the both of us. Coastal -13.5, Marshall -10, Northern Illinois +27. That probably was your worst one of the week, I think. Virginia Tech +3. That one was probably the hardest one to take. Alabama 15.5, Nevada -2. And your wins, there were some in here. You got the good Cincinnati win, -3.5, San Diego State +9, South Carolina +32, and Fresno State. See, you closed out in a hot streak here, +11.5 for UCLA. I made you 4-13 on the week. And on the season, you're 25, 26-1. So only one game off the being back over 500.
We're coming back. Dynamite's going to be back this next weekend.
All right. I didn't have much better luck this week. Lost all my parlays, lost 3 of them by one game. So that's always a fun ride. Overall, I went 5-10 on my picks, 1 UConn. It's always fun to get a UConn win. Lost Purdue, 1 UMass +22. In a world where I win both UConn and UMass, I have a bad week. That seems to defy logic. Lost Kansas +18. Lost USC, Washington State +8.5. Won the Duke one +2.5. Lost Ball State +7. We didn't get into Wyoming, but all of a sudden Wyoming has offense. I don't know where that's come from, but that just adds another team into that Mountain West.
Yep.
That might be pretty good as well. Georgia Southern, Arkansas under just missed at 52.5. Arkansas State +16 was a loser. San Diego State +8 was a winner. Charlotte, finally, luck ran out of there. Couldn't get the win at Georgia State. Lost that one at +4. Virginia +8 was a loser. UNLV, couldn't find my token last second, fourth quarter touchdowns to cover that 31.5 point spread. That was a loser. BYU +4 was a winner. And we mentioned the San Jose State -7. Would have helped score a couple more points there in the second half.
Well, I think their receivers were dropping every other pass in that game.
Well, that's probably because they were on a beach sipping Mai Tais for a week. And anyway, tough week for me, 5-10. Started out the season pretty slow at 21, 28-2 on the year. I did go 1-0 during the midweek games. I got a nice little Illinois victory there. So slow start on the season for me. We'll see if we can find a rhythm here coming into the week. I have been decent in the NFL. So right now, right NFL, stay away from college. All right. That pretty much sums up the show. We'll be back Thursday to get into week 4 games and our week 4 picks. Be sure to like and subscribe. As always, Dynamite David, Champ Chesterfield, that's our show, and we're out.
Greenlight Network presents Football Time.